Do you advertise your real estate business? What if you could sit down and pick the brains of two of the best advertising minds in Southwest Florida? We did, and we recorded it so you can listen in. You can hear that conversation with Tim Hennessy and Wendy Payton of the American Advertising Federation Southwest Florida on the Royal Palmcast right now.
From the studios of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association in Fort Myers, Florida, this is the Royal Palmcast, the show about people and things that realtors, home buyers, and home sellers care about. And now, here's your host, Jim Sanville.
Welcome to the Royal Palmcast. I am indeed your host, Jim Sanville, here in the studios of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association in beautiful, sunny Fort Myers, Florida. This is the show where we talk about things that realtors and home buyers, home sellers, anybody in the real estate business or who's, like I say, buying or selling a house would be interested in. Today we have a topic that I'm very excited about getting into because it really is something that impacts the businesses of all our realtor members as well as service providers out there, people like appraisers and people who give loans to buy houses, things like that, the mortgage industry. And I have with me, before I introduce our guest, our board ops / director of communications and marketing, Jerry Johnson. Jerry, how the heck are you?
Hey, Jim. Good morning. I'm doing very well. As you know, it is a very busy week for us here at the association, including count them two major events for us going on right now. We have a Bahamas trade mission, first ever virtual, and we have our Top Guns tomorrow. So it's a busy week, both outside the studio and inside the studio.
Yeah, so if you didn't sign up for those folks, it's too late. By the time this comes out, they will have been finished. Jerry, have you been doing anything fun lately? I know you're a big boater, been out there in the canals.
Oh, I've been boating in the canals and dealing with a lot of fuel issues, which I think I have rectified by now, but I have one more water test to do to prove that has been successful. So we're going to give it a shot this weekend. So cross your fingers.
And you'll be out there water skiing in the Gulf of Mexico.
I don't think water skiing, no.
Well, you don't see too much of that. What's up with that?
I don't know. Well, in the river is probably a good reason. We've got a lot of recreational activities planned as my son's coming down from college for the weekend.
From Orlando.
That's correct. He wants to go on the boat. So the idea is if we can make it to the beach and back, then that's a good day. If we have to call towing, then that's another issue.
There have been times, right, where you didn't make it back so readily.
That is correct. Several.
But you lived to tell the tale.
That's correct.
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about advertising today. We have two really amazing guests because these people are the Mac Daddies of the ad world in Southwest Florida. I have two members and officers from the American Advertising Federation Southwest Florida. I have the president here, Tim Hennessy. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you having us today.
Glad to have you. And I also have the treasurer of the American Advertising Federation Southwest Florida, Wendy Payton from Payton Brands.
Hi, thank you for having us today.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Let's, before we jump into the advertising game too much, I want to hear about yourselves. Are you both from Southwest Florida? Wendy, go ahead first, please.
I am a world traveler. I have lived in many places around the country. I've lived 15 years here in Southwest Florida total, so I call this place home. But I've went to school in 9 different schools growing up, and so it's been really a fascinating and fun journey.
What part of the country or world are we talking about here?
Well, I was in the Midwest, in Michigan and Wisconsin, in the East Coast, in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, and down here in Florida. And in Florida, I've been in several markets. I've lived in Tallahassee and the Tampa Bay market and Bradenton area, and here as well.
So you're an honorary native Floridian. You've been here 15 years, right?
Yes.
Good.
I brought my son up here, so I consider it home.
Very nice. Tim, tell me about you. What's your story?
Well, I'm originally from the Midwest, not too far away from where Wendy grew up, and a little town called Terre Haute, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Really, the only thing anybody really knows about Terre Haute is Larry Bird.
Columbia Record Club.
Oh, Columbia House. That's the other thing everyone talks about, because that's where everybody's 99-cent CDs came from.
That's right. 8 tracks in my day.
Yep. I grew up in Terre Haute and spent 16 and a half years at a television station, learning everything from news production to promotions to then decided I wanted to make some money, went into sales, and then just traveled around the country after that, working in Roanoke, Virginia, Lubbock, Texas, and then moved down here after my grandfather suddenly passed away and to take care of my grandmother. And but they had lived here for about 20 years before he passed, so I was always down here. Mm-hmm. This has kind of been second home, and even before he had passed, we had talked about even moving down here because it was just such a great area to raise a family, and it was just a lot of fun. But then I spent a year working at Comcast Spotlight, learning the trade or learning the sales side for cable, and then also now working at Waterman Broadcasting as an account executive for NBC and ABC stations.
All right, very good. Tell me also, either or both of you, about the American Advertising Federation. What is that organization about? How long has it been around? What are the achievements?
The American Advertising Federation is the watchdog group and the protector of the advertising industry. Anyone who has any connection to advertising in any way, we are the organization that is committed to protecting, promoting, and showcasing the best creative. Back in, was it 1987, really, when the state was deciding whether or not to put a sales tax on advertising, this is where we become visible to people outside of the advertising industry. In 1987, there was a sales tax put on to advertising costs, and for the state of Florida, and the entire organization came together along with the 19 chapters in Florida and the Caribbean, which make up our district, and we successfully stopped that initiative. And one of the biggest things that we do is we are a government action or an action committee dedicated to making sure that we self-relegate or regulate as much as humanly possible to keep intervention out and make sure that we are giving back to our and providing value to our members and the industry.
Sounds like you really are with that advertising situation. What was the proposed tax rate?
I don't really remember.
I think it was a 6% service tax, and it was enacted in 1987 by Bob Martinez, who was governor at the time. He did not win re-election, and that law was rescinded within 6 months because it was such a disaster for the state of Florida. It made us less competitive with surrounding states and other markets. So that was quickly defeated, and we are watching what our government does, making sure that the folks that we put into power are working in our best interests.
So the advertisers here were able to engage an agency, for example, out of state, and they could circumvent that tax?
Correct.
Wow. I guess it wasn't well thought through necessarily, but...
Yep.
So this is what we work to protect and work with legislators, but that's only part of what we do. One of the most visible things is the American Advertising Awards, and the trophy that everyone loves to bring home is the Addy. So every local chapter is responsible for running the local American Advertising Awards, and then and that's to highlight great creative.
Very good. Very good. So let's jump into advertising. I want to learn about the advertising game. I have a two-part question for you to start. How is advertising today different from the way it was 1 year ago and 20 years ago?
Well, that one's easy. The digital world has risen, and I've been in this industry for more than 25 years now. And the job that I did day to day was very different in some ways. But it was really about the executions that are different, the media that we're using. We have a lot more opportunity to reach people in a much more customized way than we used to. However, the way that you develop good communications has not changed in that time.
So the way messages are crafted remains the same, the basics, the fundamentals.
That's right. Marketing communications is human communications at the end of the day.
The way it changed, that's the biggest one, obviously, in the last 20 years. But in the last year, in my opinion, is dedicated completely to the COVID effect. People have changed their advertising to be much more human-centric. It's not about selling something at this point. I mean, because we all still need to do that. I mean, as advertisers, your goal is to get a message out there. And so much of what drives our economy is pushing products or services, and that is extremely important. What's changed in the last year is how you relate to people through a personal message, far more than typical advertising that has happened. Everyone is now creating television commercials and radio and they're talking about the perceived new normal, and they're talking about COVID and how they are not only just pitching a product, but how your customer experience is in their store now. Or I know that I've got several clients who have made it a point to say, we will come into your home, because right now home improvement is huge. People are getting their homes ready. They're not taking vacations. It is if there's been one positive from a shutdown, it was in the home improvement industry from an economic standpoint. One of the things that we really have seen is they're much more careful and using in their advertising the opportunity to showcase to the prospective client is how they're going to interact with them. It's less about the product and more about, we're going to provide a safe and healthy environment. Mm-hmm. We're going to be respectful of you, your family. That's in the home improvement category. I mean, look what pizza's done. Mm-hmm. Every Pizza Hut, every Domino's commercial, every Papa John's commercial. It's not necessarily about or wasn't originally or early on in COVID during the quarantine, but it was all about, we go contactless. We can put it on your porch. We can, if you want to pick it up, we'll put it in your back seat. You don't actually have to touch anything. So I think COVID changed a lot of how advertising, the perspective, how you approach the actual prospect.
Mm-hmm. Amazon had a big leg up on that early on from the beginning, because that's kind of their business model. I think Walmart just recently went in that direction in a big way with a one-size-fits-all or all-you-can-eat free shipping, right?
Right.
And as a person that markets brands for companies, we're taught as marketing professionals to consider the 4 P's of marketing, which is product, price, promotion, and placement. But we have a 5th P now, and that's purpose. So every company needs to evaluate what is their purpose and what is their social good as part of that marketing mix.
Mm-hmm. Tim, you mentioned that home improvement is up. Another area that's up, and our members know this well, is real estate. We're seeing some really, really strong numbers. We're 10% over a year ago the last few months, at least 10%. And that's nationwide, that's true. The issue is that, as our realtors well know, inventory of houses, it tends to be lower. Sometimes there's resistance on sellers' part. They don't want people with COVID potentially coming through their homes. But there's a whole new field burgeoning with virtual showings through all kinds of very cool technology with 3D tools that really make it happen. So our realtors are busier than ever, from what I'm told and what the numbers say.
And I'm sure they're hearing from the folks that are looking to buy and looking to sell, looking to move. They're spending more time at home, and they're finding out that the way that they use their home is a little different than they used to be. We've got school going on at home. We had businesses operating from home. So the way that we think about our homes are changing, and that is really causing a lot of activity in the marketplace as people look for that next best move to prosper.
Yeah, our members are finding that people who buy houses are increasingly looking for a house with a lot of rooms, because many businesses, as you know, have reverted to that work from home model for lots of reasons, mainly financial, I would think. But people want home offices. That's huge. That's like the number one thing these days. They don't want an open floor plan as much as they did 20, 30 years ago. That's kind of gone by the boards.
I think that's a really interesting point, because as someone who has moved down here and looked for housing, it seems like many of the houses, especially in a mid-range price point, they don't have a lot of space. Just some of the older homes and it's because most people consider this a retirement area and you downsize when you get there. And I think that's probably changing a lot. I think with new home development, and I mean, I know we gained about 50,000 households just in Southwest Florida in the last year. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more demand on more space. And I know that having been quarantined for 4 months, from about March to July, I can say that I definitely wish I had a house with an extra room at this point.
Yeah, there are a lot of he sheds and she sheds going up in backyards where people can kind of get away and stay home at the same time. That's quite a trend. Now, let's look at the fundamentals. Wendy, you touched on them a bit ago. As tastes evolve, as culture changes over time, and I'm talking 20, 30, 40, over generations, obviously advertising copy and one's approach to advertising needs to evolve with it. How often should an advertiser revisit their approach to things like writing copy and how they advertise?
So there's a difference between evaluating your approach and your strategy and your plan for your business and the messaging themselves. I think messaging always can be tweaked and evaluated. In real time now, we have a lot of data that we can rely on, and we can hone our messaging. And I think we should remain open-minded as time marches on. Culture changes and shifts, and we need to be in the mix for that. Mm-hmm. So we can't be so stagnant that we can't respond to messaging. It should be a constant conversation that we're having, and it should also be a two-way street. We should be listening always to what our consumers are telling us so that we can be effective in that messaging. But when it comes to planning and strategy, we do need to hold the line. It needs to be relevant. But if you're changing your strategy too much, then it's going to be ineffective for you. So there is a need for both. There's a need for planning longer term, year, 3 years, 5 years, depending on your company's goals, and then how you can respond to the marketplace in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also depends on the medium. Social media has a very much shorter attention span. What can be done and what can be created is very simple and can be reacted on quickly. So if you're creating messaging for much smaller snack size posts like on Facebook, Instagram, or things like LinkedIn, those things have a much shorter shelf life. And then you get to like a television schedule where you're trying to change behavior over time, and you're trying to convince someone that this is in their, whatever you're pitching is in their best interest. It will take a little longer for that message to resonate. So you don't want to just throw in, a new commercial every week. You want to give it a few months to really get into. There's a television saying that if you're in the business and the second you start getting really, really tired of a television commercial, that's when it's actually getting to the people who are watching television. So I think it depends on the industry for certain, but definitely the medium, there's an opportunity to go to get really, really fun and creative with a lot of content on a smaller like social campaign over time, and you can build on all of that. But as you get into more, especially from a financial standpoint, really good production can get very expensive, but it's very much worth it.
Yeah, there's a huge, huge difference in quality production versus the kind of homemade approach, as you folks well know. Back in 1985, I've always been interested in advertising. I picked up a book that you may be familiar with by David Ogilvy called Ogilvy on Advertising. So in that book, he listed some of the basics that I'm guessing are still applicable today, but you tell me, facts sell better than hype. Is that true still?
I would say truth in advertising is essential and ethical. So, yes. Right.
But I don't mean hype necessarily in an unethical way, but a lot of exclamation points and...
Right.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes from the industry. And then if you can find a fun, creative satire way of doing it, I think there's a place for that. But absolutely, I mean, in sales, which is the side that I'm on most of the time, it's all about relationships. But for an advertiser, it's not any different. You're building a relationship with your prospect. So if you're trying to be funny, that's one thing, but sensationalism in advertising has its place, but it's not where it comes to long-term relationship building. And that's where, as an industry, you have to figure out what the lifespan of your prospect or the person buying from you is. So if it's a one-time buy and that's it, Maybe over the course of a career, how many individual times is someone going to buy a house from that one realtor? Mm-hmm. It's probably a handful, maybe, if you've done a really, really good job. But where I think you get very, very powerful results is in the ROI of referrals. So getting their network to talk to your network and their network to call you back. Mm-hmm. That's where it really becomes important to focus more on the relationship in the advertising than just the hype.
Yeah, you mentioned humor. That can be a two-edged sword. That's kind of tricky to navigate, isn't it? Have you seen examples where humor just kind of fell flat, or worse, did damage to a brand?
None that come to mind. I think where you get, I think at least right now, in my opinion, where you can do harm and damage to the brand is engaging in political discussions. Mm-hmm. from a business standpoint. Right. I know some people do it really well in this area. There are some people that don't, and I think it's just one of those things that it's like the Thanksgiving table. You don't talk about religion and politics. So if you want a really, but so I think it's important. It's less of something you shouldn't do, but you just got to make sure you do it well. Right. Because not everything funny to one person is going to be funny to another, right. And you can easily fall flat. It's one of the hardest things in advertising to do, mm-hmm. is come up with a funny campaign. The fact that the Geicos and the Progressives of the world have built brands on nothing but humorous campaigns, for 3 years, everyone walked in on a Wednesday and went, Mike, what day is it, Mike? Hump day. Everyone did it. Right. That was one commercial, and it really only aired for about 3 months before it was recycled into something else. Huh. So absolutely can be done. It's very, very difficult. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is part of understanding your audience, because I think of the Burger King campaign with, the Burger King guy, and people were confused by that, but they weren't the target audience. The target audience were young men who use Burger King a lot, and they absolutely loved it. And
really?
So part of it is, you may not understand it, but you may not be the target audience.
Yeah, I always viewed that character as somewhat grotesque.
He's a little creepy, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. So not that I boycotted Burger King, believe me, but looking at things through the perspective of our core audience here, our Realtor members, people who do a lot of advertising to move houses primarily. What's a good mix of advertising? You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? So what's the mix? Print, online, broadcast? What do you recommend?
Well, as a television advertising guy,
Well.
It's hard to bypass video. I think the days of brokers and real estate groups just putting inch by inch pictures of the front of a house in a newspaper have come and gone. And I know that lots of them are reevaluating where their print budgets are and transferring a lot to digital, and that's been happening, over the last 10, 15 years. But I also wouldn't recommend putting, I agree completely, don't put everything in one basket, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin either. Jim Doyle is a sales trainer that's very popular in the sales world, and he uses the water glasses. Once you get one water glass full, add another one. Once you get that full, add another one. And maybe the first water glass is social media. Once you feel like you saturated that and you can't do any more, then move on to television, and then move on to targeted or addressable geofencing, targeted display, or something like that. Don't push so far that you spread yourself so thin and try a little bit of everything. It really can hurt.
So you're talking about filling up or half filling up a glass and then not doing that and then moving on to the next?
No, just continue to do that.
Continue, okay.
One of the things that I recommend to all of my prospects is when you're setting a budget, and this actually happens on Wendy's side, typically a good agency will, and most of them will, but the really good ones will talk about budget with the client and just find out and set expectations early on. Is this enough to hit your goal in the market? And people on her side are fantastic at this in Southwest Florida. We really have to figure out a way to get people to understand that you really need to allocate an industry standard percentage of your gross sales. So if your gross sales, let's just say it's 5%. then you need to be putting 5% of your advertising in every single month. If you have a great month next month, bump it up. Continue to do the 5%. You're not spending any more from a percentage of your overall income or your overall sales. You're just keeping it consistent, and you're reinvesting in your brand and in your product. So it really helps to increase your budget and allow you to try different things. But once you capture an audience in one glass, then the overflow needs to go into something else. So.
Gotcha. How much of an ad impression is visual versus written copy?
This is Wendy.
Well, I think that question is actually a misnomer. I think that you make an impression overall with delivery of effective copy and visuals. And so storytelling involves both. Sometimes the images come in your imagination with great copy, right, like radio. And sometimes you can have a really terrific video or still image that speaks volumes. That picture says 1,000 words. But every part of a communication is important to the effectiveness of that piece of communication. So we can't really put a value on one versus another. If you look at a specific platform, for instance, social media, video is going to be making up 93% of posts in 5 years. So, obviously we need to think about that. But messaging, communications is all of it combined.
Right. One of the things that Ogilvy talked about was clear, simple copy. Now, like everyone else in this room, I receive my fair share of postcards, oversized postcards. I'm sure there's a term for that.
And direct mail.
The size of the format of the postcards. No, I get some that are very dense with both images and copy and wow and explosion graphics and things like that are just a big turnoff, and right in the recycler they go. The ones that are simpler, more dignified, and honest feeling are the ones that I read. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Absolutely do. I think.
I'll bet you do. That's your business.
Right. Well, simplicity is always going to be more effective than hitting someone over the head. But again, going back to that idea of marketing communications being being human communications, if you've got a guy in the room that's constantly talking and throwing things at you, doesn't let you speak or take in an idea that person might deliver, then they're not going to be heard and they're not going to be liked at the party, right? Same thing with when something comes through in your mailbox and it's competing with a lot of other pieces of mail. If it's cluttered, it goes in the garbage. If it's clear, concise, cohesive, then you're able to actually deliver that message effectively.
Gotcha.
90+% of direct mail goes in the trash anyway, before it's even looked at, which, direct mail is very targeted. So you have a very limited window. You have, at most 10% of the people who you have an opportunity to engage with. And that's where the design part comes into play on the direct mail side. Let me say, I know we've talked about, the fact that I'm in television, but let me just say any advertising out there will work when done the right way with the right amount of budget. You can make pretty much everything work depending on the industry. There's some that work better, some that are more visual, some that are more the audio works better for, so radio might be better. It just depends on how you need to target, but the design of every ad is symbiotic with the copywriting and the visuals. It cannot do. You cannot do one without the other. Effectively.
Gotcha. I could go on and on and on with this particular line of discussion, but Jerry is very gently, boy, if looks could kill, is reminding me that we're up for a break. So we're going to take a very quick break and be right back after this.
Hi, this is Jerry Johnson, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
Hi, I'm Andrea Dillon, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
I'm Bill Steinke, and you're listening to the Royal Palmcast.
Reports show that even with the coronavirus affecting the lives of many, it hasn't fully hit the housing market yet. We don't know what the next few months will bring, but one thing's for sure. Home buyers want to continue shopping for their dream homes online while staying safe by avoiding unnecessary personal contact. It's still possible to safely market your listings while adhering to the current CDC guidelines. Now is a better time than ever to utilize web-based services, including video tours and virtual open houses. Potential buyers can request a video tour instead of touring a listing in person. This approach keeps the public safe and allows the buyer to take all the time they need to experience the home and repeat the experience as desired. Virtual home tours allow buyers to move through the house the way they would during an in-person showing. In addition, they are statistically proven to generate more leads and will likely provide an additional boost to your listings with even greater exposure on services like Zillow. Association members also have access to showing time through the dashboard. This free application can help with video showings, including comprehensive information on how to set them up. And don't forget about social media. Facebook Live presents a huge potential for real estate agents to stand out, be cost effective, and abide by social distancing regulations. These alternatives are a great way to take preventative measures while maintaining your customers' interest in a property. Thank you and be well.
Are you a realtor in the Fort Myers, Florida area or thinking of becoming one? If so, you should know that the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association is here to support you. Sure, we offer access to the multiple listing service, but that's just the beginning. We also offer certification classes, exclusive online tools, and a peer network of over 7,000 local realtors and business partners. We also operate a Realtor store with signage, lockboxes, maps, and other Realtor essentials at our locations in Fort Myers, South Fort Myers, and Cape Coral. Our advocacy arm, RPAC, works to make sure your voice is heard in Washington, Tallahassee, and at the local level. We speak out on issues important to the real estate industry, like water quality, private property rights, and tax matters. Realtors from throughout Lee County, Florida, and beyond count on the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association to help keep them at the top of their game. If you're a realtor or an aspiring realtor in the Fort Myers area, you'll want to take advantage of all we have to offer. Contact us today. You can start by visiting our website, rpcra.org, or by following us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. The Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association is here for you.
I'm going to make you a star.
I'm ready. Where do I sign?
Well, before you sign on the dotted line, let me tell you more.
Listening?
The Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association is looking for members who think they have what it takes to participate in video segments or other media production for the association, upcoming events, classes, special projects, things like that.
I've been told I have a certain star quality.
I believe it.
Yeah, so what's my next step?
It's easy. Just send an email to shows@rpcra.org with the word audition in the subject line. Simple. We'll reply with all the details, requirements, and forms you need for your audition. We'll review your information and let you know if you fit the part. But keep in mind, this is a real commitment. Writing, rehearsing, you gotta know your lines, recording dates, and real deadlines. And not everyone can be a star, you know. We're looking for actual writing and video samples. So email us today for your audition.
Already doing it. Is green screen one word or two?
You do have a certain quality. Ambition.
Can't talk now. Gotta get ready for my screen test. How much does this pay anyway? Asking for a friend.
Well, it's strictly a volunteer gig, but it's a great opportunity to get your name out there and may even help you build your business.
That'll work. For my friend.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have what it takes to appear on camera in our productions, we want to hear from you. Any member in good standing who's interested and can meet the commitments and deadlines is encouraged to apply. Go to the RPCRA Facebook page or watch your member weekly update for more information. We'll follow up with you and may even schedule an on-camera audition in our Winkler Avenue studio. We will also ask to see or hear samples of your past work on camera, microphone, or in print.
In Lee County real estate news today, single-family home sales are up 11%.
Oh, brother.
We are back on the Royal Palmcast. I'm Jim Sanville along with Jerry Johnson and our very special guest today from the American Advertising Federation, Southwest Florida, their president, Tim Hennessy, and Wendy Payton. Wendy is from Payton Brands, and Tim is with NBC2 and ABC7 in Waterman Broadcasting here in the Fort Myers area. So they are both very knowledgeable, very well known in advertising circles in this area, and both have very extensive backgrounds. I didn't touch on it at the beginning. I was looking at your biographies earlier, and you have done it all, both of you, right?
It feels like it some days, yes.
Yeah.
Are you calling us old, Jim?
I'm not. No, I'm not. In any event, I don't want to miss the opportunity to let our realtor members know, our service providers know, our affiliate members, how they can best leverage their advertising dollars. So I'm just going to let you two riff and tell me about what your advice is to realtors in terms of advertising.
Well, I think the temptation sometimes is you get your realtor's license, you want to put the sign in the yard, and you want to start cranking. But it's really important to take a pause, to take a step back, to develop a marketing plan for yourself so you know how much you're going to spend, where you're going to put that money, and make sure that that money is working effectively for you because you've considered your messaging, you've considered your target audience. So I would say take a breath. Have that conversation. There are our member, we have a lot of member agencies and consultants that can help the realtors do that. I've worked with member realtors here in the market to develop brands for them. And once you get a brand platform in place, you're going to be much more successful and you're going to be much more confident in understanding that the money you're spending is going to work for you.
That's where you start, huh? Then what happens?
So after that, you want to develop effective tools, right? So again, we haven't gone out into the marketplace yet because we've got to develop a good, strong mark for you, the message strategy that you want to employ to put out there. We want to make sure that you have the basics covered and you haven't kind of skimped out on those things that are going to be really personally reflect your brand and your business and your acumen. So don't cheap out on those business cards. Make sure that you have a terrific leave behind. Make sure you have the tools in place that are going to help you deliver the message once you're out in the market.
So all this planning is predicated on your understanding the consumer and their needs, their wants, and what they will respond to. What's the best way for a realtor or others to get some insights into consumer behaviors and wants?
Well, again, I would recommend that they talk to someone who is in marketing, someone who has an understanding and experience in the marketplace and developing that. And I would say besides knowing your consumer, you also need to know your competition because you want to be able to differentiate yourself from among the really competitive marketplace here in Southwest Florida. Mm-hmm. And what I see is that people who do spend the time to create a plan and create these tools that are going to leave an indelible impression when they go into pitch against other realtors, they see more success.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Tim?
Absolutely. I think that's extremely important. The only thing I would add to it is the fact that it's really important to ask people questions. Surveys are very, very important. We've all bought houses for the most part. Everybody's been in that process. Find out what's important to them as a buyer and also a seller, because we've all pretty much at one point done both. So, but make sure you ask the right questions. It's not you're doing yourself an injustice if you just say, "Where did you see me?" Well, if you've got a lot of those glasses filled, they're just going to say the last place that they happen to see you. They're not going to say that the direct mail piece I saw, and then I saw the TV ad, and then I heard the radio commercial, and they're just going to say radio, and then you might not know that they all work together.
Well, and we've done surveys before, and I've done a lot of work with developers and developer marketing, and we'll have folks respond that they saw it on a platform that we weren't spending money on. So people don't always know. And that's where we talked about that healthier mix earlier in the program. Having a good, healthy mix where we have frequency, and we've been consistent with our messaging, and we have a strong, indelible imagery. All of those build up to create an impression. And I think that was a terrific point about surveying, but understand who your consumer is. If you're trying to sell to everybody, you may be less effective than selecting a niche target that you feel that you can really relate to and deliver on really well. So for instance, if your target is a first-time home buyer, you may have a different message and look and feel in the marketplace than you would if you're looking at the exclusive $1 million plus market. So all of that needs to be considered when you're developing those messages and where you're putting your message.
And the individual realtor needs to kind of figure out where they fall within the landscape of other realtors as well. So I know everybody likes to have the $1 million plus listing. Sometimes there's great money with if they sell, but they don't sell nearly as much as homes in the $250,000 to $400,000 range in this area. So do you want to be volume? Do you want to be known as one thing? You want to dabble in certain areas, but figure out what's best for you and then target those areas. So if you're looking at direct mail pieces, obviously, if you're wanting to be the luxury high-end dollar realtor, then you're not going to necessarily need to target Lehigh. You're going to need to target water or homes on the water and on the coasts, and then you really want to make sure that you're hitting those people in the ways that they are receiving their information.
Right.
Local news, financial shows, whether it's targeted mobile ads. It can be anything, but find out who your target audience is, but also remember to decide kind of what you want. You can always pivot, but where you feel like your energies are going to make you the most amount of money, whether it's volume sales or the high-end luxury market.
While each of you was speaking, I came up with a list of about 8 more questions, and we could go on and on and on. But what I'd like to do is ask you back for another show, or maybe even 2, if I can impose on your time.
That would be great. Thank you,
You can
Jim.
do that?
It's been fun.
Tammy, you're in? Okay. I do not want to miss this next part of the program because this is my favorite part. And this is called, I think I warned both of you about this, although I ambushed you, Wendy, with the lightning round. It's the lightning round. Jerry, we got to get a thunderbolt sound effect. What do you think?
Working on it, Jim.
Just go.
As long as it's not a real thunderbolt, I'm good.
Oh, we've had those.
Yeah.
Living around here, believe me. All right. So what we're going to do is find out a little bit more about you each as a person, Wendy and Tim. We're looking for soundbite responses. Don't overthink it. Just very quick. And before I even begin, I have to get my list of questions. And these are all written down on official game show host index cards, 3x5 cards. You've seen them before. And they've been sequestered out in Lehigh Acres in a lockbox on a door since last Thursday at about noon, I believe. Jerry got up very early today. It was still dark out. He drove out to Lehigh Acres from Cape Coral, came back here to Fort Myers, and he now has the questions he'll hand to me.
Yeah, here we go. There you go.
Glad you remembered the code.
Yes.
All right, I got them all right here.
Well, Jim wakes me up very early every time before a show.
I get nervous,
It makes me go out there.
I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly, I think you'll... No, I'm not that nervous, really. So I've got the lightning round questions, and we'll go Wendy, Tim. And you don't have to answer any of these if they're too anything. So here's the first one. Let's begin. Where would you live if not in Florida?
Oh boy, that's a tough one because it depends on my mood. Some days I'd love to live in Colorado, in the Rockies.
That's on the hot days, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Michigan is so beautiful with all the lakes and rivers. New York is amazing with all the activity and Broadway. And so, if I could live anywhere, maybe it's everywhere. Who knows?
Everywhere. All right, an itinerant. How about you, Tim?
I'm a bit of a political junkie, so I'm going to have to say D.C.
Ah, the Beltway.
Yeah.
All right, that's a fun place. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Dogs.
Dogs. Ooh, one of each. All right, this one is multiple choice, and I'm really interested in what Wendy's going to say here, given her background as a world traveler. All right, which is it? Which do you use? You guys, use, or y'all?
You guys.
You guys?
Early in my life, it was you guys, and then I spent a few years living in Virginia and Texas, so it ended up becoming y'all.
I knew you were going to go with the y'all. Big finish with y'all. All right, when and where was the last time you saw snow?
I saw it in Washington, D.C., actually, a few years ago when we were there with our AdFed group for a lobbying initiative, and walked out and there was snow, and I just loved it. And my colleagues from other parts of the country were not as much amused as I was to see it.
No, I'm from Maine, and I don't care for it that much.
Yeah, brother.
That's the secret word, Maine. It always gets Jerry's attention. I'm from Maine originally. Tim?
I think it was about 4.5 years ago in West Texas.
West Texas, huh?
Yeah, every now and then they get a big, it was like one night, and it was about 5 inches of snow, and no one knew how to drive except for me, having been from Indiana. So,
there you go. I used to work at Texas Instruments, and I never saw snow in Dallas. I don't know if they get it there or not. But all right, what is your guilty pleasure? Something you don't typically reveal. You can between us.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I insert the Jeopardy theme.
I don't know. I'm really. I never realized I was so boring.
I'm going to go with warm chocolate chip cookie with a scoop of vanilla ice cream.
You gotta love it. It's classic. It's classic. All right, socks with sandals, yes or no, Wendy?
No. Mm-mm.
Heck no.
Heck no. Whoa, the emphasis. All right, which iconic movie or TV show did you never see? For me, it's Star Wars. Never saw.
I sat through all of those episodes. We did a binge watch of the Star Wars series after we got our Disney Plus, so I can't claim that one.
Can't think of one? All right. Tim?
As president of the American Advertising Federation, I am very, very disappointed to say that I've never watched Mad Men.
Oh, Mad Men.
I've never seen it.
Oh, check it out. It's still around. You can still go see it.
It's on my list. I just haven't had a chance to actually.
Don't feel bad. I haven't seen it either.
Oh, it's evergreen product. You'll love it. All right, moving right along. Wendy, do you do any imitations?
No.
Tim?
No.
Yeah, here's what I think.
That sounded like one right
Here's
there.
what I think, Jerry. I think Tim does an imitation. He didn't want to be put on the spot.
No, I don't.
It's his guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Most of them are just made up characters that I do with my 12-year-old.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Until I get the eye roll, and then.
Gotcha. All right, now tell me about some of your favorites. Favorite movie?
Oh boy! Again, I would say Howard's End is a classic that I enjoy.
Tim.
Shawshank Redemption.
Nice. That's set in Maine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite food?
Sushi.
Warm chocolate chip cookie with ice cream on it.
Yes. Boy, are you advertising for Joe's Bakery down the street? What's going subliminal stuff going on here?
I've been on a diet for a week, and it's the one thing that I can't get out of my head.
They should do some product placement and send some cookies over. Favorite day of the week, Wendy?
Friday.
Tim?
Sunday.
That's a good day. Saturday isn't bad either in my book. What's your favorite form of recreation, Wendy?
I love to play tennis.
Tennis.
Cutting grass.
Dream car, Wendy?
Tesla.
Really? A Tesla? Is the dream car?
Let's not get judgy here, Tim.
No, talking about that. Dream car, probably a 1940s Cadillac.
All right, you're going way back. All right, for a classic. Now I hold in my hand the last lightning round question. Wendy, you get one bucket list item. What is it?
I'm really not good at this lightning round thing. I've decided.
No, you're great. You don't have to answer. Tim?
One bucket list item probably is just a world tour.
The Grand Tour. Yeah. All right.
I'd really like to go, starting in Italy, work my way up, through the Alps to Auschwitz and see all of the great World War II battlefields, and that would be a great trip.
I'm with you. I'd like to go out to the Pacific Islands as well, Iwo Jima, Saipan, all those places, the Philippines. I just finished binge watching Ken Burns' The War. Finished it last night, so I won't spoil it for you if you don't know how it came out. But, okay, now we're going to have to say goodbye here, but you have agreed to join us in at least one more program because we have so many questions that will help our Realtor members maximize their advertising dollars. Now, for each of you, how do folks get in touch with you, Wendy?
So you can reach me at wendy@paytonbrands.com, and I'm happy to chat.
Nice. Tim?
Yeah, and the best way to get a hold of me is it's just timh@water.net if you'd like to learn a little bit more about television or digital advertising. I will say that one of the most important things is to find a rep that you're comfortable with, that has your best interests at heart. So when you're looking for a sales rep, that's one of the most important things to your advertising. So timh@water.net. It's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Sounds good. Thank you both very much for coming.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it. Jerry, people can reach us by sending an email to shows@rpcra.org or contacting us however you like here at the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association in Fort Myers, Florida. I want to thank Jerry for running our board magnificently as usual. We put him through the paces.
You're too kind, Jim. Thank you.
Well, also Beata Jones, our CEO, who is very supportive and always there for us, and the whole staff here at RPCRA. Everyone is wonderful. It's a delight to work here, I promise you. And And I also want to tell you about our sister podcast that is Realtor Riff Rap with host Nick Bejelis, and you can catch that on all the big podcast apps. We also have a YouTube video show called Realtor's Corner, which is hosted by Nick and Joanna Rowell. So check that out on YouTube. We will look forward to seeing you again next time, and hopefully we'll have again these two advertising legends, local advertising legends, I'm going to call them, because these guys know it all. Thanks very much for listening, folks. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Royal Palmcast. Tune in again for more episodes and make sure to check out our sister podcast, Realtor Riff Rap, and our video news show, Realtor's Corner, which can be found on the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association Facebook page and YouTube channel. Sponsorship opportunities for these programs and more coming soon. So stay connected with RPCRA and stay tuned. This has been a production of the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association.